Kablamo! As you all know, currently the world is going up in flames. So we must talk about Joe Biden's climate plan. For some reason, not many people have... No, Joe, I don't want to give you any money. Actually, I think I'm not even allowed. It would be foreign intervention or something. So, as I said, not many... No, Joe, I still don't want to give you any money. So, the default mode is to hate good old Joe. And why not? He looks like an expired grape running for president. But whilst checking out many videos on this topic, I realized the overwhelming majority of commentators have never actually read his platform. So let's get right into it. The plan is a holistic one. There is an international and a national approach to the climate change problem. Nationally, Biden plans to solve the crisis by using a threefold approach: regulation, investments, and by fast-tracking innovation. By using a mix of executive orders and legislation, the US are supposed to be emissions-free by 2050. Let's go to the investment side first. Biden plans to spend $1.7 trillion over the next 10 years in investing into the infrastructure of America and, in doing so, making it more climate friendly. Of course, this will also renew the US infrastructure generally, which has been crumbling for quite a while now. This will be done by US companies using US produce. For example, GM will be tasked to produce climate-friendly buses for public transportation. Now 1.7 trillion sounds like a lot of money. But remember, Biden wants his plan to sound really historic. So if you look into the details, many infrastructure investments, which have very little to do with sustainability, have been included into this plan as well. For example, the renewal of roads and bridges. Actually, why am I explaining this? Let's Joey talk about it for a minute.
Play the radio, make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone, make sure the kids hear words.
Yeah, maybe not. But what I wanted to illustrate with this is I couldn't find a clip where he talks about his plans in detail. So let's go to the next part of his plan, which is regulation. He wants to put in place limits on methane pollution for oil and gas producers, although I couldn't find any specific details here. So next. The next thing is, Biden's plan will require public companies to disclose climate risks and the greenhouse gas emissions in their operations and supply chains. Furthermore, Biden's team wants to conserve 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. Honestly, I don't know exactly what this is supposed to mean though. Are these gonna be national parks or what? Regarding that topic, Biden's team wants to permanently protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, so I think this is gonna be a national park. The last thing is, Biden's team wants to allow for denser, more affordable housing near public transit. These are the more tangible regulations I could find. There is a lot of lofty rhetoric about responsibility and whatever, but I think in the end what really counts are the policies and the policies only. Now for the last field, which is innovation. The Biden team wants to spend $400 billion over the next 10 years in this field. This investment will be used to develop new technological breakthroughs that will create jobs and drastically reduce emissions. At least that's what the Biden team says. For example, they want to use the money to create sustainable fuels for aircrafts, carbon capture technologies, and other things. Also, they want to work on the quote-unquote future of nuclear energy. There's even less tangible stuff than in the last one. I only found 2 KPIs. The first one is that they want to reduce the carbon footprint of the US building stock by 50% by 2035. The second one is that they want to build 500,000 charging outlets for electric cars by the end of 2030. One last tangible thing is that Biden wants to give a tax credit on electric cars to incentivize the purchase of them. Especially middle-class consumers are supposed to profit from this. So, let's get to the conclusion. Let me start by saying...
Shit's getting way too complicated for me.
Well, maybe not too complicated, but I have to say, at times it was quite hard to distill all this information out of the platform. There is a lot of lofty rhetoric, like we want to help coal workers by investing in their communities. For some people, this might sound really good, but what exactly does that mean? It's nothing concrete, and the Biden administration won't be held accountable for such statements. For this video, I tried to focus more on the specific goals. And as you can see, if you strip away the BS, there's not so much which remains. However, I'd say it's more than we were expecting from Biden on the climate issue. The two best things probably are the amount of money that they are willing to spend, which could be enough to push the US towards zero net emission territory, and the fact that they are willing and able to reach many of their policy goals by issuing executive orders and thus not having to rely on the Congress and Senate. The negative side is of course that many ideas are just that, ideas. I would have preferred more details, timelines, facts and figures, which are lacking in many parts. I have to say though, where they do provide such numbers, the plan does look promising. If you look at it from an international side, the plan is actually quite progressive. Only the European Green Deal goes further. I would have especially wished to see some regulation or incentives for the financial industry to invest more into green energy, as the EU does. If you really want to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, it's imperative to impose such regulations. Otherwise, the climate might soon go kablamo! Overall, 3 out of 5.